Now, I want to speak to you about our favorite series so far. Yeah? Mysteries of the Beginnings 8. And tonight I want to touch the mothers and the office of a judge. Okay? But there is something specific I want to touch when it comes to mothers. Office of what? Of a judge. Mysteries of the beginning. So some of you are new. Temutia. Some of these things will look like, but this is episode what? 8. Although you can understand. Yeah? I've already helped you put Revelation 12 verse 1, because that is what we last touched on. We touched on what? Revelation 12, and I showed you how you can deal with the past, the present, and the future, all using the same what? Revelation. Yeah? Now, I told you some of the things you struggle with as character flaws. Okay? If you understand that you had a life as a spirit before you came here. Yeah? God says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in your mother's what? Womb, I did what? I knew you. Okay? Some of the things you struggle with, or some of the things you are good at, yeah? You were good at them as a spirit. You get it, eh? So this guy was a prophet because before he formed him in his mother's womb, he knew him somewhere, and he knew him and ordained him as a prophet. So even here he was excelling as a what? As a prophet. Eh? But some of even the things that you struggle with, yeah? I've told you that before Adam comes in the picture, yeah? There were things that had gone on. Okay? That is why I said, for some of you who are new, yeah? Some of those things you can find them in the previous series. They are all called mysteries of what? Of the beginnings. And I told you, this revelation here, yeah, has quite a number of interpretations. There is an interpretation that is so ancient, and we touched that. An interpretation where the devil was thrown, yeah, before Adam ever came in the garden. Okay? There is that interpretation, and I showed you scriptures for it. Then there was the present interpretation, which actually correlated it with Jesus' life. And Jesus fulfills Revelation 12. Yeah? He is that man-child. He is all those things. He is the one that flees to Egypt again, and all of those things, you know. And you remember what happens, and I told you the devil took on the form of Herod, just like the devil took on the form of the king of Tyre in Ezekiel 28. Okay? And I also told you that this whole chapter also can take on the form of the church. Okay? So let's read again. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. And I said, tonight we are touching mysteries of the beginnings, what? 8, the mothers and the office of a judge. Okay? So, I told you again in Revelation that actually I can describe to you the whole book of Revelation using stars, because there is such a thing as the gospel in the stars. And I told you even last week that most of us have embraced a gospel that preaches certain things as if there is any corruption that exists without an original. Okay? Before anything is corrupted, before you said duplicate, yeah? Duplicate comes from an original. You understand? Why? When you go back to the beginning, when God created everything, He saw that it was good. So for you, you are not called to just judge things and you leave them there. You are called to restore them. That is why the Bible said in Acts that He must be holden up, that is Jesus Christ, until the time of the restoration of all things. That is why it has also said in Galatians that if a man is overtaken in a trespass, you who are spiritual, yeah, must restore such a one in a spirit of meekness, lest you yourself you be tempted. So what proves that you are spiritual is your ability to restore things. Are we together so far? Not your ability to judge. Okay? Because when we go in the mind of God, because God is love, He doesn't judge to kill. He judges to restore. Even as a parent, no real parent will get a child who has done something and gets a panga and cut off the head. You get it? Eh? You'll use something that you killed the baby, but not to kill, because you love. You understand? So that is what I taught you. Okay? You are restorers of the broken generations. You are the restorers of the desolate inheritances. That is what Isaiah calls you. Now a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon, and under her feet and under her head a garland of 12 stars. Go on. Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. Go on. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the what? To the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give what? Birth, to deliver her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. Go on. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Okay? And they explained all of these things, but to give you a recap, I told you when we are looking at stars now, the virgin or the woman, that was ready to give birth, okay, already in the skies there is a star called Virgo, which is translated the virgin. I told you when the scripture says about Christ who was crucified from the foundation of the earth, I told you in the foundation, what the scripture really refers to as the foundation are really the stars. Okay? Those are the foundations, and I told you why. Because stars are known for record keeping. Okay? And I told you even today's science, they are going there. Most of these GBs you have and all of that, they can't keep things long term. If a flood comes, they might be what? Destroyed. But rocks are known for keeping data long term. That's why they've kept a lot of data in pyramids, in lots of things, even those ancient what? Beings that came before us. Okay? So I told you that stars had a lot of these what? Records. So there is a star called the Southern and the Northern Cross. It's called the Crux. Yeah? So before Jesus was ever crucified, that star was there. Okay? So this woman, there is a star called Virgo, and it is actually often crowned by Leo, the lion, and we know Jesus is referred to as the lion. Okay? So that whole symbolism, is displayed in the stars. What you see as the dragon, and he gets the tail, and draws a third of the stars. There is a star called Draco, the dragon. When you turn it anti-clockwise, the way it appears, it is as though it is drawing stars down by its what? By its tail. Are we together? And I've done it in a teaching called the gospel in the what? In the stars. These things do what? Exist. Before God wrote and gave you the Bible, there was a lot that was decoded in the stars, because that was the foundation. What God does, he first records it somewhere. So usually everything he does starts from finished work. Are we together? So before anything, this is the gospel that the people in the books of old read. That is why in the book of Job we find stars. That is why in Genesis we hear that the stars were meant for seasons and for all of those things, And even when the scripture talks to you about the sons of Issachar who knew the times, what they were really good at, they were not prophets as per se, but they were people who are good at understanding stars. And they could understand that now, according to these stars, Israel should move or should camp. Are we together? So these things have been there in the history. That's why I told you some of the words that you have today have just changed meaning, but originally they didn't mean, You get it? I told you the word Siri, for example, back in the days it meant someone who is wise. Yeah? Previous teaching. Today when they say Siri, the word nice meant someone who was foolish. Today when they say nice, you get it? Where you get magic is where we had the word magi. So you know the magi that came to see Jesus. Okay? Originally these people were students of stars. Okay? So they could tell. And I told you that this constellation and this alignment has happened before when Jesus was born. Jesus wasn't born on 25th December. He was born around what? September. And I told you that. Anybody who is a good scholar, they know this. But it is believed that his conception probably happened around what? December. But the giving birth happened when? Are you together? Okay? Now, are you together so far? So let's continue to what brought us. Say continue. So we are touching basically, I want to basically look at the cycles of the mother, this mother, yeah, that they are speaking about on the earth. Okay? That's why I say today we are touching about the mother, but not just any mother. You'll know some of these things. Okay? Because like I said, if some of you don't understand how some of these things work, you might not appreciate how life works. Some of you, these things might come and go. Yeah? For example, there are events that often precede solar eclipses. Yeah? You know this man, Charlie Kirk? He was killed after a blood moon. And this blood moon was actually long. 82 or 83 minutes. Yeah? A day or 2 days after, the man is killed. And his killing is not just any killing. The thing turns out to be what? Global. It's like a marking of a particular timing that we are in. Okay? And we have to appreciate some of these things because, like I said, stars encode destinies. They encode a number of things. That's why I told you when the devil, I proved that to you by scripture, that stars, yes, can mean angels, but they can mean real stars. When the devil was throwing down stars, these were real what? Real stars. Why? Your destiny is encoded with a star. I told you even witches know this. If they want to really go after you, they go after your what? Your star. When someone arises like a celebrity, they say a star. You understand? That one is a star. Yeah? Why? Because people understand these things. You church people, yeah? You have become so good at, you judge a thing, but you don't know the art of restoring it. And this is where God is calling you. Become restorers.